One of the biggest problems worldwide is politicians no longer represent the people. The whole point, the philosophy behind democracy was this idea that politicians would be representing the people, mainly because it is the people that keep the politicians in power. It is the people that vote the politicians into power. And in theory, just on paper, it seems like a perfectly good and viable system. The issue, of course, is, as with all things, corruption seeps into it. And before you know it, the politicians are no longer really answering to the people. The politicians are answering to their donors. They're answering to people who keep them flush with cash. And there's a reason for it. Donations are important. Political parties and their success comes down to as much their policies as it is their funding. In fact, funding might be far more important because it doesn't help if you have a message but no way to actually get that message out. What is required is a message and also a way for the masses to see said message. One of the things I think that makes YouTube and new media such a powerful tool is exactly that. The ability to make YouTube videos for free, I think, goes a long way. And the fact that podcasts and YouTubers like myself and others are popping up everywhere speaking about the issues will present, in future at least, a viable avenue for smaller parties to reach the greater public for little to no money. As of right now, though, we're not quite there yet. I think money in South Africa specifically and in our political system is a massive, massive problem. And that's what makes today's story really, really problematic. President Cyril Ramaphosa have now enacted a new threshold for political funding, where previously someone could donate up to 100,000 Rand without it ever having to be disclosed. That number has now been increased to 200,000 Rand without any disclosure. This is already quite problematic because 200,000 Rand might seem like a lot, but for a lot of people, that isn't a lot of money, right? And for a lot of organizations, that isn't a lot of money. And that amount of money will come with strings. Absolutely. If someone is donating 200,000 Rand, they're going to want something for that donation. It's in fact probably one of the biggest misnomers is the fact that we call it a donation, because technically a donation is something that you're giving to someone for work that they are doing, and you're not expecting anything in return, which is why it's called a donation, right? Otherwise, it would be a transaction, which is not what happens in the political sphere. When you and I donate our money to political parties, we might give $100 or $200 or $300. John Steenhuisen or Peter Mulder, they're not phoning you, right, and going, hey, thanks for the $30. What can I do for you, right? You don't matter. They don't. But if you're donating 200,000 Rand, if you're donating $1 million, I guarantee you John Steenhuisen will call you to be like, hey, thank you so much for the dono. What can we do for you, right? What exactly is it that you want? Because clearly you wouldn't have given this money unless you wanted something in return. It turns our politicians basically into glorified sluts for very rich people. So that's, on the one side, something really, really bad. On the other side is the 15 million used to be the max donation limit of a single person. So no one person could donate more than 15 million. That has now been increased to 30 million from a single person that can donate to a political party. Further, I think, exacerbating the problem, making things infinitely worse within South Africa, because this brings even bigger players to the stage, and even more people can now exercise their interests and their influence over our political system. In fact, a watchdog, My Vote Counts, had quite a big problem about this. When the National Assembly voted in favor of the threshold in May, civil society organization My Vote Counts said if signed into law by the president, this will mean that parties will be able to accept secret donations in higher amounts up to 200,000 Rand, and a single donor can use their financial muscle to donate up to 30 million Rand a year to a party, and may make donations within this limit to as many parties as they choose, which does, by the way, happen. If you're a very large company, something like BMW or Mercedes, you're most likely donating 10 million to the ANC, 10 million to the DA, 10 million to the EFF, 10 million to MK. You're just spreading your money around. Why? Because you want all of your interests represented everywhere equally, no matter who wins, right? So you're not even doing this because you agree with one political party over another. You're just doing this to make sure that whenever a party comes into power, your interests will be looked after. MVC, My Vote Counts, is awaiting judgment in its matter in the Western Cape High Court that was heard in February this year, in which it challenged various aspects of the Act. These included the irrationality of the two limits and the power of the president to have the final say in setting the limits. In its application, MVC wants both natural and juristic persons to disclose donations they have made in excess of the annual threshold. It also wants the annual upper donation limit of 15 million to be significantly lowered. In my personal opinion, I don't understand why anyone could donate any amount of money without political parties being forced to disclose those donations. Political parties serve the public. Therefore, all of their financials should be completely 100% public. We should be able to see exactly where they're getting their money. We should be able to see exactly what promises were made to individual donors. These should be literally booked, right? So if a donor signs up, they have to sign an official form saying exactly what it is that they're donating for. Personally, I would scrap the entire thing and I would make it illegal for any business or any well-connected person to donate any amount of money to a political party. And I would lower the threshold to something like $200 at most. The most that anyone is allowed to give to any political party is $200. Yes, that will make a lot of these political parties a lot smaller and a lot more broke. But I think that's a good thing because it will get a lot of the bad money out of the system. It would mean ordinary South Africans can match rich South Africans because effectively what this does when you have these massive gaps, right? You have effectively created a system where the rich can just buy political influence that the poor can never match. Democracy is supposed to be one person, one vote. It makes everyone equal. That's supposed to be the whole concept of democracy. I'm not in favor of democracy, by the way. I think democracy is a terrible system. But, since I'm in South Africa and that is the system that we use here in this country, that's fine. But democracy is supposed to be the great equalizer. Prior to this, you would have the king, you had the nobles, and the nobles would have far more influence with the king than what the peasants would ever have. Or you would have weird systems of autocratic rule where no one had influence but the leader, right? Democracy was supposed to be the system where everyone can now finally be equal. But thanks to vote or donation limits such as this, every person isn't equal. Because I cannot make a donation of 15 million to any political party. Heck, if I had 15 million, I would not be spending it on politics. I can promise you that, right? But I can't make that donation, meaning I cannot exercise an influence truly over any other political party. And then when you actually start to look at things like this, so the SABC comes out with this new poll that actually or this new data that actually shows just how bad unemployment is in this country. And you can see the very worrying thing here is that across every single race in society, unemployment is getting worse. From the white people who are currently still the lowest in terms of being unemployed, they're still growing, right? Their unemployment is still higher than what it was in 2010. But then you have, for example, Indian and Asian, coloreds, and then you have black South Africans, and you can see that their unemployment has gotten a hell of a lot worse. But then you have people like ANC Secretary Fikile Mbalula, right, that says that ANC reaffirms commitment to transformation and calls for protection of BBBEE gains. I had to say it that way because I don't want to get to the word gains because this is just like, what gains? What are we talking about? Like, when we're talking about gains, what gains? And I have asked the secretary this every single time he tweets nonsense about BE. Show me the gains. I don't see the gains, right? Like everywhere I look, the economy is doing worse, the GDP is worse, unemployment is worse, welfare benefits are worse. Everything is getting worse, yet you use the word gains as if that is somehow meaningful of something. But then you look at what he posts and you realize, oh, never mind. That's the gains that they're talking about. Fundamentally, as long as we have big money in politics, the people of this country will never be represented in politics. That's just how it works because you don't matter nearly as much as the person that is donating 30 million rand a year. That's end of discussion. This is why the ANC does not reverse their BEEs. This is why the ANC will not reverse affirmative action, despite the fact that it has wreaked havoc on this country. They will not reverse it because the people who benefit from this are the people donating 30 million, 15 million, 20 million, however much, right? This is where the ANC's money comes from. The last thing the ANC can afford is to lose that cash. And so they cannot let go of BEE because that would slit their own throats. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about this situation. Is our democracy for sale? Has it already been sold? If you like what I do, you think more people should see the content that I make, please consider hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and leaving a comment because engagement really does help push videos. Massive shout out and thank you to all of the patrons and the YouTube channel members that keep this channel afloat. Thank you so much for your support. And if you want to become a patron, just hit the link in the description down below or click the join button just below this video. Any and all support really does help. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.